right. I'm Ari Graff. Welcome back to the Resilient Man podcast. Today I'm talking with Coach Bob Conlin. So it's funny that how I met Bob because he's literally living in my neighborhood or almost my neighborhood. I guess we've been working out at the same gym for
Yeah.
years. He just looked like another tattooed guy at the gym. So I had no idea there was this other men's coach at the gym. And then I was talking to a guy at a birthday party that my kid was at, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you gotta talk to Bob." I was like, "Who's Bob?" Um, so this is how we got connected, and I was really excited because I'm interested in connecting with coaches all over the world, but especially in Chicago. So a few things about Bob. He's a master certified coach. He's I think you were the head of the ICF in Chicago, if I'm
Yeah.
remembering
Yeah. I
correctly.
sat as president for a few years. Yeah.
Okay. And the founder of a men's group called the Alchemy of Men, and the author of a book called Why My Relationships Suck. Um so I like how direct that title is.
Yeah.
Um Then you also are married now, and your wife is a coach, and you guys work together. So I'm
Yeah.
curious about how that works out. My
Yeah.
my ex my ex-wife is a therapist, so we had talked about having a practice together at one point.
Sure.
Um, so so yeah, that's a little bit about Bob, but I want to hear from you before I get into um how you work as a coach. Can you give us your story? And for the men listening to this, a lot of them are going through divorce. So I know you went through that.
Yep.
So I always like to show people, how someone can move from maybe the most painful or stressful part of their life to a new chapter, a new hopeful chapter. So that's how I'm going to tee you up today.
Yeah. Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks, Ari, for having me. And yeah, it's fun. How we got to meet and get connected. It was through my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is the guy that you met at the.
Oh, Steve's your brother-in-law? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't realize that.
I mean, he's a great guy to have his family, and he's on his own journey now too, which is really cool to witness and be a part of in terms of growing and developing and exploring. But yeah, the one thing I think you left out too is I'm a father. I'm a 50-year-old man, and I have a 5-year-old son. So
It's important. Yes.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's as rewarding as it is challenging, and it's my son has been such a blessing and a gift, and I joke that he's my best coach. He's my greatest teacher, and I learn a lot from him every day. And not only what he needs and how he's developing, but what his reflections to me, based on our relationship, and what I'm still learning about myself, what it means to show up as the man, father, and husband that I'm committed to being. So he's awesome. Yeah. So
I want to come back to that later because I think that's such a great point that when you become a dad, and I have a son too, it shows you a lot of the areas where you're unfinished,
oh yeah.
where you still need to grow.
Yeah, 100%. I was about a year in, and my wife turned to me and all of her patience and grace and was like, "I don't know what you need to do, but you need to go do something. You need to go figure it out." Because I was just really struggling in this new role as a father and as a husband, to a mother, essentially, right? Like, because that our whole marriage and relationship dynamic had shifted and changed, and I really felt like I didn't know where I was at, and I had to like figure it out. And, I think a lot of this pointed to where I was unfinished. I love that term, like where some of my additional healing was. And a lot of it was around my inner child wound and stuff like that just needs some more exploration, more attention to it. So yeah, man, like I think, my story in brief, like I've been in this work for about 10 years, and it really started, and when I say in this work, like being a coach and being a really big proponent of professional development and particularly supporting men to heal, to rise, to live unreasonably, and to create the experiences of life and relationship and career that really matter to them and are actually meaningful and are fulfilling. I think, myself included, I followed the rules and I checked all the boxes of what I thought a meaningful and fulfilling life was. And then when I finished that, I found myself asking bigger questions like, well, now what? Is this all there is? And that was really when, excuse me, I started struggling in my first marriage. Like I was chasing so much outside of me that like there was nothing in me. And that had a really big impact on my marriage. So um
What were you chasing?
I think um in hindsight, like connection, community, um, worth, joy, those kinds of things I don't think we traditionally think about as goals or objectives as men to achieve. But like I said, I had all the things that were supposed to make me happy, and yet I was unhappy, and that created a deeper conflict within myself because I didn't know why I was doing any of this stuff. And and
You were doing what for work?
yeah, so my background's in healthcare. So I was a critical care registered nurse for about 10 years at the bedside, and really was a really kind of lost soul in college for years. And I think I was like in undergrad for like 5 or 6 years, and I still had no idea what I wanted to do. And then like I just happened to fall into nursing, and it was the first time in my academic studies that I felt like, hey, I could do this, or I want to do this. It tickled the parts of me that really liked like science and anatomy and physiology, and then it also tickled the parts that really where I like to be of service, right? To like help others and to just be in support in that way. And
Is critical care? That sounds intense.
very,
Is,
yeah, very. It was, and I think like in the nursing, well, in any of the medical professions, like that's not really talked about. Like I'd go to work and every day, like someone's passing away, or like one of my patients, at that level of like disease progression and sickness and intensity, like you're in the intensive care unit. People
right.
are the sickest of the sick. And I worked in a major academic medical facility in Chicago. So like the sickest of the sick would get flown in, they'd go there. And it was, every day you're walking into work and I'm like, punching in, and it's like literal life or to death scenarios constantly. And what I started to notice was, while all this in the background was going on, like this lack of fulfillment, this asking these bigger questions, like who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing any of this for? Is this all there is? All that was going on. And then you throw on top of a very physically demanding, emotionally demanding, um, often thankless job, as a nurse. I think that compounded really like my bottom, my breakdown in my life. I kind of had I'm 50 now. This was when I was in my early 30s, and I kind of had like a midlife crisis, or a quarter life crisis um,
Mm-hmm.
at that point. And mixing in, um, I grew up. Uh, I was always like a very big kid, and when I was growing up, like I always looked older for my age. And when I grew up, I was hanging, I was like 9, 10, hanging around with teenagers. And then as those ages progressed, I got exposed to a lot of things like a younger kid normally wouldn't, like mainly like with drugs and alcohol and things like that, sex, stuff like that. And I played in a rock and roll band from like the age of 13 until like I still do. So I was in this like rock and roll lifestyle, I kind of as this young kid, and I just picked up some habits around alcohol and drug use that kind of like always stayed with me, always had it under control, and it was just kind of something that would happen on the weekends. And then, I think when I was going through these challenges of my own evolution and self discovery of like who and what the heck I am, mixed with like some conflicts happening in my first marriage, mixed with the strain of the career I was in, I turned really hard to drugs and alcohol, and that really just like kind of took off, took off. So um that was part of the story of like why my first marriage dissolved. But I got really it got really bad, like to the point where I almost lost my life. And there was an intervention at work that folks came in and basically saved my life. And I went off to treatment and spent 4 months in a rehab, just getting physically healthy. And while that was happening, like what I really started to was starting to bubble to the surface was like, I got some like emotional and relational work to do, you know, like it was the first time in my life where I realized like whatever's outside of me is not going to fill what is inside, what is empty inside of me, and it was like such a gift in that sense where it's like, yeah, it hurt like hell to lose that marriage. At the same time, like I lost my job, I lost my home, I lost my car. I was 31 living back in my mom's place, and
Wow.
lost all the things that I'd created and built up to give me happiness, or what I thought or that defined me. And then there I was left with nothing. And
So
so like
you got your wake up call.
in a
Yeah.
big way, right?
Yeah.
And and like in at that moment, I was like, God, all I have left is my marriage. Thank God. And then like within a week that my wife at the time asked for a divorce, and I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And again, like while I was in it, it was like terrible. It was awful. It was terrifying. It like shook the very foundation of who I am. But it also really gave me such a beautiful gift that I can just focus on me now and focus on getting well, focusing on my emotional, mental, physical, spiritual health, and then really like figure this out, figure out who I want to be, what I want to do, what I'm committed to. And that was in like 2007 was like when that huge breakdown happened. And I have this saying in like coaching that, oftentimes our breakdowns can lead to really extraordinary breakthroughs. And if we embrace them as such, right? When life happens and stuff gets really hard, we have two choices. We can just like lay down and let it happen to us, or we can use it as a catalyst for our growth and transformation. It's kind of like stepping through that threshold on our hero's journey, right? There's something that we have to go through to get to the other side to then experience and grow from it. And that's in a microcosm. A lot of the work that I do with the men I work with is supporting them in some type of transition like that, and get them clear on the gift that it actually is, even though it sucks. You know, you know.
Right. Yeah. I always say this is not the learning experience that you wanted, but it's the one you needed.
Yeah, yeah. Like I
Yeah.
would not in a million years would have ever chose it, But like one of the other gifts in it too was like it gave me the opportunity to start just taking responsibility, right? Like in any relationship, there's two inputs minimum, right? And like in a victim mindset, like, I can't believe she's leaving me or she's doing this to me or this or that, or how could this or that, when like, in her defense, like she brought hard conversations a lot and stuff would change for a little bit and then go back to normal. And I had blinders on that I couldn't actually see what was happening, what was needing to change, and not being responsible enough for it to change, to own my part and to grow with it. But I wasn't present to it. I wasn't present to like, I also created this, and it sucked to it like sucked to swallow that chunk of truth about myself,
Well,
but like,
it's so easy to feel like the victim and not look at how you showed up, how you co-created the relationship.
yeah. But again, like, and the gift in that was that like, hey, if I created it this way, I now had the like choice to create whatever was next in a different way. And, that's what I did, so I worked a really solid 12-step program for a good 10 years, It's a long game, long game. And I had some sprinklings of other relationships in there. And I
What what were the big insights you came to about relationships from your marriage?
um, yeah, I think one of the big things is that, I'm as responsible as my partner is. And there's this idea that, like, hey, I'm putting half in, and they're putting half in. And, like, what I started to notice in practice was like, hey, what if I put 100% in? What if I was 100% responsible for this relationship? How would I show up to it? How would I act about it? And that, and I bring that into my current marriage, today. Um, and then the other thing too is, like, just how much I didn't know, you know. There's no, like, relationship course in school, right? Which I think there should be.
We get more time in driver's ed than
Yeah, totally. And it's
than
like,
marriage ed. Yeah.
yeah, right. So, like, how do you actually create a relationship that works, And so I didn't know how to show up in a relationship. I didn't know how to take responsibility. I didn't know how to own my part of things. I didn't know how to, like, like, early on. I was like, well, what do I actually want? And I couldn't answer that, which was, like, also, like, sad and also very interesting, right? It's like, well, what do you actually want, Bob? So um, like, the big insights were just like, I could take the responsibility here. I have as much responsibility to create this experience I want in a relationship as my partner does. And that it also uncovered, like, just how wounded I was, how I've spent the majority of my life putting up these barriers to give and receive love in the way that I actually want. Like, I always, like, when I think about this conversation about that barrier to love, like, um, I noticed I was doing this thing with my ex-wife where I was like, because I didn't love myself. It sounds cliche, but, like, I didn't have that, like, belief or care or curiosity within myself to care for myself in a way that mattered for me. That when other people would love me, I'd be like, what the hell is wrong with them? So I was like, there must be
Yeah.
something wrong with my ex-wife if she loves me. So then I'll be like,
It's almost
I'll
like
be,
the Woody Allen, I wouldn't belong to a club, uh, that took me in. I think that's what the
yeah,
quote is like.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 totally, right? So,
Yeah.
but what that did was, like, it just pushed her further away, right? Which is, um, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, why would a woman like that? And she's great, she's incredible, like, we still connect every now and then, we just kind of catch up. She's I speak no ill will of or word of her, but, like, I didn't realize I was doing that until, like, kind of after the fact. It's like I didn't love myself enough that if someone did love me, like, there was something wrong with them. So I created that self-fulfilling prophecy of uh, being terrified that her love was going to go away, and I basically gave her every excuse and reason to take it away from me because it was more comfortable. Again, in hindsight, and after tons of work, it's more comfortable. Uh, like, pushing her away to prove that I knew she was going to leave me than, like, staying in the relationship and, like, figuring it out. So, and I think, if anyone listening to can also relate, like, our marriage had ended, probably a year before it actually, like, ended, like, we were just in I joke, like, we went from a relationship to a transaction ship, like, our lives were intertwined, right? That, we were just going through the motions and going through our routines. And I think the catalyst of me hitting my bottom, with drugs and alcohol and just really, like, kind of losing everything, that was her opportunity where she saw, I was like, oh, this would be a good time to exit, you know, and
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
Well, it's clear to me now, that relationships can die. Like the the energy can die and people can still keep going. in a marriage or in a relationship. I call it a zombie marriage or zombie relationship. It's um, and this is why I feel actually grateful to my ex for ending the marriage.
Yeah, same.
Kind of putting us out of our misery because I see so many couples who stay together sometimes till the very end when
Yeah,
that relationship's not alive. And I think relationships, this is my belief, uh, they can get to a point where they can't be resuscitated.
yeah, yeah, and I think particularly, I've seen this. It was my story and the story of a lot of my clients is um, like, are you gonna call their bluff? Are you gonna call your partner's bluff? Right? Like,
What do you mean?
oftentimes, like in my experience, like my ex-wife was like, we need help. We need to change things. We need to do this. I'm like, oh, we're okay, yeah, but we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. Or like we resist actually doing the work. Whether that's I talk to a lot of men who like they're now willing to do work because they've lost everything or they've lost a lot. But before that, they're like, oh my God, I've been walking around this marriage with blinders on. And my partner's been like, hey, we need to go to couples counseling, or hey, we need to hire a coach, or hey, we need to create this change in our marriage, or it's not gonna, and it's often like, oh no, it's fine. Like we'll get through it, whatever. And then
Is
like,
is that more of a male problem than a female problem?
I mean, it's more of what I've seen. I'm sure just because of the types of folks I work with, like it's I work with couples too, and primarily with men, but like it's a pretty common dynamic where the man will have the um, kind of the blinders on and not actually facing the truth, severity, or the impact of the situation actually happening. And two, I think no fault of our own, right? Because I think, and again, in general, and again, my experience as well, I think that men are a little more resistant to getting support, really of any kind, um, of having those vulnerable, intimate, scary conversations, kind of facing those fears, speaking from the heart, speaking their truth. Because we've been taught forever to be self-sufficient, to suck it up, to just work harder. Your feelings don't matter. Be a man. That kind of stuff, and it's now it's now coming at a great cost, especially for men, in kind of my age group, like 35 to 50, that those debts are now coming due. And and we're finding that it's coming at the cost of like, crumbling relationships, crumbling health, impact or you know, uh issues with career, like all kinds of stuff. And I found that that willingness a lot of times only comes at the cost of some great pain. So you're getting divorced now. You're losing your kids now. You're getting fired from your career you've spent 20 years building. You've had major health issues. Then they're finally starting to wake up. You know,
Right. We need a certain amount of pain in order to make change, especially if we don't have a vision about what we want.
yeah, 100%. And like we have to acknowledge it first. And like I had this conversation. It was years ago. I had a conversation with a couple, and the wife was like, "Oh my God, we need this. We need support. We need change." Da, da, da. Really advocating for the support that she saw that the relationship needed. And the husband was like, again, no, we're fine. Like we're good. And it's like, why does he get to be right and his wife get to be wrong? Or, or even vice versa. But like, if there's half of this, I relate to like a relationship as has three things, right? There's both partners, and then there's the collective creation of the actual relationship, like relating to that as a living thing as well, right?
Yes.
So if half of this living thing is dying, like wouldn't it make sense that the other half of the living thing be like, hey, yeah, let's gets you what you need, so
Yeah.
yeah, so I share that. It's like, we have to like be aware of it. If we're choosing and committed to this relationship thriving, if half of the relationship is struggling, that's on us too.
Do you know the concept of walkaway wife syndrome?
No.
Um, yeah, it was coined by, I forget her name. I think it's a social worker, but it's basically this idea. I mean, most marriages these days, the divorce is initiated by the wife,
Mhm.
and I think in college educated marriages, the wife initiates it like 90% of the time, something crazy like that. But the walkaway wife syndrome is basically that in many marriages, the wife um, emotionally withdraws over time and in stages. And initially, the husband um, tends to minimize that withdrawal, that or tends to minimize the wife's complaints or frustrations, and then the next phase, um, she's not complaining as much. She's just more withdrawn.
Yeah, she's
And
done.
so
Yeah.
the man thinks that, okay, maybe things are better, um, because she's not complaining as much. Obviously this is like a generalization,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
basically, yeah, it's a process of emotional withdrawal that she gets to, and she's basically made a decision to leave the marriage well before he wakes up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that like resignation, where it's like whatever.
By the time he wakes up, it's too late to work on it, or it's very difficult to work on it.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I had a couple I was working with earlier this year, and it was that scenario, right? And she was literally serving divorce papers, and he like finally woke up, and like she had so much generosity in being like, all right, I'll give you one more chance. And he got his ass together, and like they're able to um save their marriage, and like in a good way, not just in a like we need to fix a problem, but they got to recreate their relationship together. And look, like not all marriages or relationships are, I would say worth saving, but maybe that's just the natural evolution of a relationship and it's time to go.
Yeah.
But it's like, my thing is um when all the signs have been there and all the requests and asks and bids for support and different types of attention and affection are missed. Right. It's like you were, you know, you were given all the opportunities and you didn't take them. That's the thing I always get curious about is like, what had you wake up now? It's like, oh, I'm losing my kids or I'm losing my house. And it's like, well, you know, like we can recreate what's next for you, but it's likely not going to be that, you know? And
Yeah.
like, and too, lately I've had that happen and I've had clients remarry their ex-wives, which is like really cool and courageous and, it's always a possibility, but like we have to do our work. We have to do our work for us, not for them or even the relationship. We got to do our work first. you know?
So I was curious from what you were saying earlier. You were saying, that you didn't value yourself. So how did you come to value yourself? What is that process? Because
Yeah,
that can seem kind of abstract. Like, how do I learn to love myself?
it's a great question. And I'm still learning, but like what I noticed was that it was kind of a pay to play kind of scenario I would do with myself is like I had to earn something in order to feel good about myself. Right. And like while uh
In your earlier
yeah,
incarnation,
yeah,
sort of
yeah, yeah,
before you became conscious or woke
yeah,
up.
kind of, yeah, like in my, kind of late teens, early 20s, um, even into my 30s, like, um, it was really a net, like I couldn't earn or do enough to like prove to myself that I was essentially like lovable. How I tried going about that was, I went to lots of school, I got lots of awards, I did lots of great things. I did all this external stuff that would validate, to the world and myself that I was good enough, or that I was lovable enough, or that I mattered, or like whatever it was. Right. And like, while that, that's, I think that gets bankrupted, like that game can't go on. Like, it provided me a lot of success in my life. I had a great career. I had great schooling. Like, I had, um, a lot of fun in life, like kind of chasing the more. But it was where I was coming from, which wasn't going to sustain, which was like, I'm a piece of garbage, but if I get this next degree, I might feel better, or I'm unlovable, but if I date this hot woman, then like, oh, whatever. Right. And it was just very like, just like it was like a bottomless pit, so if
Yeah.
you came into my sphere, particularly if you're in a relationship with me, and like, you had to do a lot of work to fill my hole, you know. That sounds funny, but like
I totally know what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, to like fill this like just gaping like um hole. And I was like, very, I joke, one of my coaches called me like precious. Like, I was very sensitive and precious. So if you didn't like me, or you said something that put me off, or whatever, like I would hold a grudge, and I would make sure that you knew, that I was hurt, or like whatever. I was just very um victimized by so much in my life, you know. Um so when I realized that I was like, had to do something or be something to earn like uh even just an ounce of love for myself, right? Like, once I realized that, I was like, well, if it's not that, then what is it? And one of my first coaches just helped me discover like what it is. He's like, well, what if it was just a choice? And I was like, can it be that easy? Like, can you just choose to not be your own worst enemy? Can you just choose to like love yourself, to do things that support the man that you want to be? And that's been the context I played with for like a few years, is just like, um choosing to love myself, choosing to like do things that aren't from like I need to fill some emptiness inside of me, but like choose things that almost like prove to me that I'm loving myself, you
Yeah.
know?
It's a daily practice.
Yeah.
It,
And
it's
and sometimes like loving myself like feels like like crap, oh, if my wife and I get like in a disagreement, or she says something that was hurtful to me, like the me loving myself is like, hey, um, hey, when you said that, like it kind of hurt, or like me loving myself is leaving my perfect corporate career I had, which was totally safe and predictable and had lots of success, but it wasn't for me, like that made no sense to leave that job to do what I do now, but that was like an act of me loving myself, you know, um,
right.
like I said, like
Which is nothing
it may
against
not feel
corporate
loving to go
jobs.
have this.
Yeah.
No, not at all. No, no, great. But like, that, that the idea that like it's gonna always feel good to love yourself in a way that matters. Like, it just, what I'm like pointing to, it doesn't, like it's not gonna feel good to go blow up that relationship, or, if that's actually not serving you, or leave that career that's not serving you, you know. Um and like,
Don't just chase the immediate gratification, or
yeah.
what seems to appear like it will fill you up.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the easiest ways I kind of share this like dynamic is like um I would have to go to the gym to feel good about myself. So like if I go to the gym, then I can feel good about myself for the day. It's still a more concrete example versus now it's like because I feel good about myself, I go to the gym. It's just a different like lens to look through it. And actually I had this breakthrough at the gym when I was hit going really hard for a few months. And I was, on the treadmill doing something, and I was like, is this actually a loving thing to be doing right now for you? And in my old context was like I had to be there to earn it. But like my body was sore, I was tired, exhausted. And I was like, no, dude, the most loving thing you do right now is go home and take a nap. And it was like, what? you know? But like that helped me realize even more like that dynamic. It's like I could choose. It's a choice. And I get to choose it every day and every moment, every interaction. And, hey, is this going to support me in loving myself or not? And I get to
Yeah,
decide. Yeah.
I like that framing. And what you're describing is you're someone who's having an ongoing conversation with yourself. And I think we're all having conversations with ourselves all the time. But a lot of the time it's sort of unconscious. Uh it's ruminating, it's worrying, it's spiraling. It's not treating yourself with compassion. It's not curious.
Yeah. No. Or, yeah. And the other thing too, it's like I don't have this figured out. Like I constantly am working on this within myself, but I'm aware of that's where my opportunities are. I talked to a lot of men too. Who are like, oh, I talked to a therapist once, or I had one coaching session and it didn't really do anything. And it's like, man, like we're not in the fix it game. Like we're in a long term evolution game. You know, years and years of failed relational dynamic or how you've created your life is not going to get solved in 1 hour. Like, there's so much about the persistence and the resilience and the stamina that it takes to like continue to stay in the work and that to get like to stay in this evolution of moving from this like victim mindset to this growth mindset. How can this challenging, devastating life experience actually be for me? How could it be the catalyst for what's next for me? You know? And like, when I look back on my first marriage and like, man, like, within like a week, like I lost everything, and living back at my mom's house and, no job, no car, no house, no wife, barely any health. Like I hadn't, I kind of, lost it all. And like, um, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was the seed that got planted for my own personal like discovery and being who I am committed to being, and then like led me to the life that I have now. I'm married to a wonderful woman. I got to be a father, which was something pushed away and was in hindsight just scared of, you know, my whole life. And I got to have that full experience of life of being a parent and being a co-parent with my wife. And um,
Can you say a little more about that? I think that's just really poignant. Like that being a father was something you pushed away. Was it something that you felt like it was for other people, or did you never?
yeah,
Uh,
it seemed like honestly just seemed like more of a hassle than a benefit. Like there's so much here. Like when I was 7 years old, my father passed away, so I grew up without a father, and I as kids we were my experience was that like, we were a hassle. We were just something like to kind of get through and deal with.
mm.
So, and then I just like knew I was like, and again, like how can my lifestyle permit to have a child? And like the hilarious thing, like even like 3 months before my first marriage was like ending, like we were considering having kids. Like that was going to be the thing that was going to save the marriage or
save
save
save the
us.
marriage.
Thank God we did it. But Um, like I was just resistant to it. Like I didn't see it, just always seemed like a hassle. But like I had this like inner like yearning for it. Like a deep part of me wanted to have this experience, even though I was scared of it. And then when I met my wife Shauna, um, and we were, like we were uh creating our relationship and like our life. And, I started to realize like, I didn't want kids before because I think it was just with the wrong person. I could
Mhm.
see myself having a kid with you, and it just started to open up my heart to it a bit more. And then we were like, I think I was like 45, she was 38 kind of thing. And we're like, well, let's just try, at least we say we tried. And then like if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great. But we could always say that we tried. And then, and her coach at the time, who's actually one of my good buddies now, um, was like, but you guys still aren't choosing it. You're like, you haven't chosen it. And we had been trying for like a year to no results. And then the moment we chose it, we got like pregnant almost immediately.
So interesting. What does that mean?
So we were
Well,
just like, we're not using protection. But we were just like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But we hadn't chose it. Yes, we want to have a baby. We never said that. We said if a baby happens, okay. But it was like
that's
us being like, hey, we're the generators and creators of our life, and we get to commit and choose what we want. And we just hadn't chosen it yet. So when we finally chose it, then the magic showed up and it happened.
it's so interesting. Yeah, there wasn't a real commitment
Yeah,
to
exactly. Yeah, we had no commitment. And it was just kind of like you can relate to that as kind of victimy mindset, or just like not empowered mindset, maybe, or just like, not being, it was really just at effect. Like if it happens, fine, but we weren't being responsible or like actually choosing it. This is for us. We want this. We are going to create this kind of thing. So like all that being said is, like, I'm sure if some of the folks that are listening to this, like they're in it right now. They're going through it, and um I've been there. It's tough, it's hard, it's heartbreaking, it's like devastating. And um yeah, I love that saying that the only way out of any challenge is through it, you know like being that buffalo and going head on into that storm to get through it quicker. I was like, do the work, face the things, face the fear, follow the breadcrumbs to your healing, into like your evolution and your awareness and understanding of yourself. And who knows what is better on the other side. What if all of it could be 1,000 times better than what you had or what you're going through now. And that's been my experience. And I see it happen a ton with the folks I work through. Is like so much times we focus on what we're not going to get or what we're losing versus, hey, since I've lost this, what could I actually get now? What could I actually create?
yeah, being in a space of possibility.
Yeah. And like the funny thing is like the marriage I have now would not have been possible unless I had them without the marriage that I had. Like I joke, and like in layman's terms, I joke like I needed a practice round. I learned so much about myself and about relationships in that first marriage, which is like one of the biggest gifts to then like bring into my current marriage. Like knowing what I know doesn't work, or knowing that, hey, if I've got something going on with me, the sooner I share it, the better we're all gonna be. You know, and it's yeah. And like
I
I
to
said, like the marriage I have now literally could not exist without the one that I had. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally relate to that. What did you discover about men's and women's psychology from going through your first marriage and divorce? And
Yeah, I
and
think
and how do you work that into your coaching?
yeah, I think some of I mean, so much, right? But I think some of the big things, it comes down to like just some fundamental needs. to really understand what um those like core needs are in each individual, right? And like um in as a whole, right? Like or in general, I find that a lot of like the feminine or if we just talk about women specifically, like they need to feel heard, they need to feel understood, they need to feel cared for, they need to have a sense of devotion, right? Like, and when I say that, it's really like they need to feel safe, that we're not creating a lack of safety in our relationships, whether that's, you know, of course, like physically, right? Like physically they want to feel safe. And that can look lots of ways, right?
I
But
think
like,
this is the confusing thing for a lot of men, is because women will often talk about safety, and they're not just referring to physical safety, they're talking about
yeah,
emotional safety, but
yeah,
then it's translating that to men, what that means.
yeah. And like the way I translate it is like, just don't make it worse at home. Keep it simple, dude. Just don't make it worse. You know, see how like, what is your contribution? Like, are you contributing more chaos or friction, or are you making life at home easier? And oftentimes it's not the case. It can be as simple as like comments about, I don't know, um, like my wife and I have this thing around the dishwasher, right? She loads it wrong and I load it right. And then I'm just like, I would make comments about how she loads a dishwasher. And I'm like, on some level that probably has her not feel safe that she can't do it right for me, or like, all right, I'm just making it harder or worse. Like, which is like, why? Doesn't freaking matter. So anyway, so like this idea of just feeling cared for, understood, heard, seen, valued, and like devoted to and safe, right? I think is on the feminine. And I think oftentimes men, like our approach to problems with our partners is we want to fix them because we're logical or analytical, we're problem based, we're, hey, if there's no food in the village, we're gonna go out and hunt and bring some food back. We're very like kind of to the point. And there's this great video, I don't know if you've ever seen it called "It's Not the Nail."
I I think so, but describe
Yeah.
it.
So yeah,
It's
so it's a couple sitting on a couch and there's a woman speaking and she's like, I've had this headache for like 2 weeks now, and it's just like it's impacting everything in my life, and it's just really hard for me to focus. And then the guy's over there and he's like, and she's got a nail sticking out of her head. He's like, you have a nail in your head. She's like, see, that's what you always do. You always like, you always just try to like point to the thing. And he's like, just take the nail out. She's like, see, you're just trying to fix it. You're trying to fix me. Like, you're not listening to me. You're not hearing me. And he's like, okay. And then he pauses and he's like, that must be really hard. And she's like, oh my God, see, you get it. She's like,
right.
all my sweaters are snagged now. And he's like, oh man, that must suck. Like, tell me more. Right. And like, it's that dynamic. Like, just listen to them. Stop trying to fix them. And in my own life, like I had that breakthrough when my wife was like, breastfeeding my son and I was telling her what to do. Again, the most intimate thing that can happen with a woman and a child. And I'm inserting myself like with the fix for why it wasn't going the way that she wanted to go, you know? So, and then like conversely, like men want to be acknowledged. They want to be appreciated. They want to be celebrated,
Respected. Yeah.
respected. They want to be celebrated when they come home to the village with a fresh kill. Like they want to be acknowledged for like, what they do, right? How hard they work. They want to be seen for their efforts, right? Um, and like what I've noticed is like a woman will not open up to you if she does not feel safe. And by that I mean in all the ways. Her heart, her mind, her voice, her legs. She will not open up if she does not feel safe. So if there's a lack of intimacy, particularly physical intimacy in your relationship, like as men, look there first. does my partner feel safe? And there's a lot of a good awareness and good possibility there. If we just like keep it simple, just look at the simple things. Like, what is my contribution to this relationship? Am I
I
making
think it's also daily practice. It's daily. Uh,
minute by minute, man? Yeah,
yeah,
totally, 100%. Yeah, but it's like having that. I think we're all going through life. We're all trying to survive the day, and like a lot of the conversation we're in is about intention, is about like doing things on purpose, and that's when we're just trying to survive the day, that's hard. But like taking that moment to pause and check in with like, hey, what do I need? What does my partner need? What am I contributing to this right now? You know, what bids or cues am I not present to, or am I missing? And it's all that takes intention and purpose. You know, and that's work, man. That's work after a day of just getting through life, and you gotta sit down and have conversations like this with your partner. It takes work.
don't say it like that to her.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
I got to sit down and have a conversation every day. Yeah,
Yeah. But just like, I mean, and it's literally like, I think when you're first practicing, it takes a little more like structure and intention, but like just a little, like no, my wife and we're in this whole dynamic all the time too. And like, we're both purveyors of the work and highly trained in this stuff. And, but like now I can catch on cues. I can like pick up little things, or I can notice something in myself, and we go right at it, and talk about it, and because we're so practiced, and that took years. Yeah.
what do you mean by soul practice?
Um, I think it's being able to pick up on the energy, the energy of like the what's actually going on there. Like, we can kind of sense when something's up, you know, and it's what are we doing with that? you know like oh, she's not complaining anymore, so she must be fine, like your checked out wife thing, or the
Yeah,
yeah
walk away wife. Yeah,
your wife, yeah, that kind of stuff, right? It's like, is that actually what's going on? Like, if you were to tap in at that deeper level and actually be honest with yourself and get curious, like, that's you know there's something going on there. It's kind of like a sixth sense almost, like, we know it's like an intuition. Yeah.
and that's something that you really pay attention to carefully now.
Yeah, and that came with practice, you know? Or like, I might know what my wife needs before she does, Like, "Hey, do you need some space? Do you want me to leave? Do you need to go for a walk? Like, do you wanna talk about something?" It's kind of like helping
You're
her.
the rare telepathic man.
Maybe, I
It's
don't know. But it's just like, and even like and she does the same thing for me, you know? And oftentimes, like, "I'm fine, leave me alone." But then I'm like, "Well, let me get curious. What is she sensing in me?" If she's asking me, I've contributed to her inquiry in some way, And like, instead of pushing off and brushing it off, let me like, oh, my partner, who I spend the majority of my life with, is sensing something in me. Instead of pushing off or making her wrong for it, or telling her to screw off, is she pointing to something? I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm tired. I need a break. Or like, I need to go blow off some steam, or I need to go to the gym, or I need you to like appreciate me, you know, tell me how you notice how hard I've been working, or like whatever.
It sounds like a beautiful relationship. Um, and
Yeah, we
I
work
know,
our ass off at it, you know. That's another thing too, is like, like, because we have a business, like, my wife and I, like, we've worked together, and like, we've ran relationship workshops, and we've spoken, led at things together, and people are like, God, we're so just, we love your relationship. We're so inspired by it. We're so admired by it. And it's like, yeah, and we work our butts off at it, and it's, I think that's going back to that earlier comment about like relationship school, right? Like there isn't one, and there needs to be. And, I think like we're not trained or taught how to be in a relationship. Like we don't know what we're doing. And then then you throw in all of our, you know, dysfunction, childhood traumas, um, past relationship experiences, state of the world, kids, all that stuff, and you throw all these other variables that impact just that dynamic of two people being together. And it's like, of course, the divorce rate is the way it is, you know? And like, of course, people are struggling the way they are in a relationship. Like, none of us know what the hell we're doing.
So
If
would you say that it's a choose your hard situation? You can either choose the hard of a dysfunctional marriage or the hard of a well working marriage. It's not just easy street.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Uh,
yeah, they both take work, and like, I love like that dynamic. It's like, is this moving you? Like, they're both going to take work. Is it moving you towards what you want or towards what you don't want? Pick it. You know, pick it. And like, particularly if you're in a relationship now and your partner's like, hey, we need help, we need some support. Yeah, it's gonna suck to do that, and it's also gonna suck to lose everything you built and created. So choose your hard. You know. Um,
Go back to what we were hitting on at the beginning about um, becoming a dad and the unfinished work that you found.
yeah,
What did you figure out?
I want to like so. I mean, I still am. It's and so much, but one of the big ahas I had early on was with my son. Like he was 1 or 2, whatever. He's doing what babies do. He's crying, freaking out. I think he might have been in like the kind of the tantrum phase. Getting there. Um, and when he would get triggered and upset and like freak out, I would get triggered and upset and freak out. Like I would just be like, "What the?" And then like my wife, in her wisdom and patience, was like, every time our son has a tantrum, I have to deal with 2 toddlers.
Mm.
Meaning that when he has a tantrum, I have a tantrum. And it was kind of like that thing where
How,
she was
how
like,
did that go over?
it hurt, man. It hurt. But
Yeah.
it was again one of those like those moments like I can make her wrong for it and fight and defend it, or I can get curious and be like, what is she pointing to? Right. And then, shortly after that, she's like, I don't know what you need to do, but you need to do something. And that's what like propelled me into, deeper levels of my own healing. And what I discovered in that was like my inner child was pissed off and resented my 2-year-old baby, because how dare he get to cry and freak out and get his needs met when I couldn't, when I would get a shut up or slap on the face
Mm.
or whatever, and or and I was just like, oh my God. So I got to like, there's this idea, and and inner child work is that we get to reparent our inner child. We get to reparent the young parts of us. So I just
Yes.
got to practice like reparenting my inner child. Again, I just want to be, this might be like, the hell these guys talking about. So just hang in there with this. But like there's a notion is like, oh, there's clearly some needs I have. Part of me has, we can get into like internal family systems work and stuff like that. But there's a young part of me that lives inside me that has needs, and that has an experience, that has wounds, that has desires and aspirations, right? And I just noticed that like I wasn't present to that, and it would come out sideways and getting triggered and reactive, and my son would get triggered and reactive. So then I got to like pause and check in, and I was like, what do you need? What's this part of you need? And again, like going back to this was like another way in which I would just push away love, being right about how hurt I am, or, being right about why does he get to get it and I don't, So I got to practice, like loving myself in a different way, loving this younger part of me in a different way. I went out and I bought a Voltron, like the robot from like the 80s. Like I
Right.
went and bought a Voltron toy. I always wanted it growing up. I was like, fuck it, I'm getting it. You know, silly, right? But like the energetics of that is like really powerful. I got to like take care of my little one and give him something that he always wanted and needed so he could feel safe. So he didn't have to have a tantrum and freak out. Yeah. So that was like one of the biggest things that he's taught me. He's also taught me a lot about honoring time, like when he was young and like I was, still trying to run my business and stuff. And I'd schedule meetings during his nap and then he wouldn't take a nap. And then I'd get victimized, like he's not sleeping and I can't serve my clients. And it's like, bro, honor your time for your time. If you're with him, you're with him. If you're with your clients, you're with your clients, and create it that's how it goes. I mean, you can have a whole another 2-hour conversation about everything he's taught me, but it's a lot of that.
You have to be so intentional about your time once you have a kid.
Yeah, all
I
of
think
it,
that's
all of it. Time, and like, hey, if I stay up till 11 o'clock watching Netflix, like, I'm gonna be a train wreck in the morning when I need to be a dad and a husband. So it's like he taught me like how to take better care of myself and to like, like, yeah, I want to sit up and eat bad food and watch crappy TV. Like I want to do that. And it's going to be uncomfortable to not do that. But like in that discomfort is like the growth towards what you actually want to be and how you want to show up, So it's like, he's gotten me healthier, you know, primarily because I need to, like just to keep up with him. I'm, chasing him outside at the park when I'm 50 with sore knees, like I got to lose some weight, you know, all kinds of
I,
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I love those examples. Before we wrap up, say a little bit about your men's programs. Like you're doing men's groups and retreats.
Yeah. 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 So I'm a co-founder of a organization called Alchemy of Men, where our main mission is to help men heal, to get them into deeper levels of healing, so that they can rise, right, to step into their full power, and that they can start to live life a little more unreasonably, right, to do the things that don't make sense in life, so they can get what they actually want. Like in my own experience, like it made no sense to leave that corporate job to be able to get to do the work that I do now. No sense. It makes no sense. But it's that idea of living unreasonably so we can get that experience of life that we want. So we run like 3 to 4 day men's retreats. Explore a lot of topics important to men. Relationship, money, commitment, integrity, physicality, sexuality, spirituality. Like there's a lot that the weekends are packed. And I think the thing that's really nice about what we do is like, we're not just talking at you, like we are all immersed in the work. So even as leaders, we're doing our work amongst the men, and we're not just talking at you. Like we'll go in with you, and like we'll make a difference with you in the moment. If you're like struggling with something or need support on something, like we do. And the guys, it's typically like 15 to 25 guys, and they come in as like strangers and they leave like brothers. Like to have that experience of men sitting around a fire, which we've done for hundreds of thousands of years, and like be in community and be in conversations that matter to move us forward, to get us present to who and what we are, and present to like the fire in our belly to help support things that we yearn for and want to create, and things that we desire, right? And then having whole community of men like around you to support you and lift you up in that, it's like powerful. There's I say I could talk forever about it, but like there's no words that can describe like what actually happens there. It's like it's magical, man. And I think it's a big thing missing in our society is men going off together, like going off
Yes.
together. We used to, like I said, we used to go off to hunt. We used to go off to a battle. Um, and like we don't have, or we used to have our rites of passage, and like we don't have those anymore. And in some small way, like this is just, like those experiences, so we lead those. We have a virtual men's coaching group called the Crucible, where it's fast and it's to the point. It's like I joke it's like an arrow. We come in, we get to work. I'm primarily doing most of the coaching there, but I'm like firing arrows at the guys, and they're gleefully taking them, and they're moving their lives forward, which is really cool to see. And then we have like in-person events. My partner's out in San Diego. We got guys all over the country doing some stuff. We got one guy who's leading poetry jams, another guy on the East Coast. We got a guy up in Alaska doing some men's groups. We got a guy down in Texas doing breath work. Like we got guys just all over the place doing cool and fun stuff. So um, we always got something going on. Yeah. And then in 2 weeks, we're leading our first co-ed retreat. We had the some women come to us and ask for this experience, so we co-created it with them. And we got 20, 21 people right now coming up to join us for that one. So
That's exciting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's new. It's stretchy for us. It's stretchy for us, and anytime I can explore the things I don't know and explore um, my discomfort and being in that unknown, I think is good for me as my own growth and evolution. You know, yeah.
What's the goal of that retreat with that's co-ed?
I mean the main context we're exploring is just like our edges with like edges everywhere, like in relationship, but primarily around we're playing with like with polarity around the masculine energy and the feminine energy. So where
And
am
it's
I?
all couples there?
No, no, there's some couples there, but it's anyone. We've got men coming, women coming, couples, singles, non-binary folks. It's folks that are just wanting to explore those edges of that masculine feminine energy within themselves. So the context is that we believe we each possess those parts of us, right? And where might it support me in my life to lean a little bit further into my feminine energy, or where might it support me in my life to lean a bit more into my masculine energy? Because like once they're balanced, we have the belief that that's when we work we work the most efficient in what we're creating, who we're being, what we're experiencing.
It sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
but yeah. Plus, we're doing like a bunch of embodiment stuff there too. We got some breath work and some hot cold contrast therapy. We've been working with trying to get a sweat lodge going with one of the Apache elders out there. So yeah, it's gonna be a good weekend.
well, if there's before we wrap up, if I'll ask one more question. If you ruled the world, what would it look like?
Be a lot more tribal, a lot less technology. I think we'd be in communities of 50 to 70 people, with a shared common goal to keep us all going. We'd be around fires, we'd be telling stories, singing songs.
I'm putting it all on Instagram.
Yeah,
Yeah.
opposite. Yeah. I feel like there's no way our biology will ever catch up to the technology, you know? Like I'm not supposed to know what's happening, you know, um, in other countries across the sea. I'm not and primarily like around all the challenges that the world is facing right now. It's like we didn't have that. Like there's no way we can hold all that, and yet we're inundated with it every day. We knew like what maybe was going on with the tribe next door to us, and that's like all we were concerned about, and that's all we could handle. And I don't know if we could ever catch up to what we're actually being inundated with. So in the connectedness, like while it's great, I think it also comes as a barrier and a challenge to our own peace. you know. So I think it would be more primitive. Yeah, we'd be in the dirt more, you know, farming, working our own land, and keeping it simple, you know, having a village raise our babies, and yeah, kind of it reminds me in my undergrad. I took the history of Western civilization a couple times because I flunked it. And the question the professor would always start, he's like, "Are we better off? Are we better off now than when we were hunter gatherers?" He's like, "That's the question you get to answer throughout this whole year." And I don't know. In some ways, yes. In other ways, no. Yeah.
It's a really great question with all the AI changes and
Yeah.
you know, like things that we don't even see coming.
Yeah. I'll say
Uh,
this: like, I feel the most myself when I've got a drum in my hand and I'm sitting around a fire and I got my feet in the dirt. I feel that's when I feel the most me. And then when I'm with other people doing the same thing, you know, that feels the most natural state of who I am. And yeah, that's why I love retreats, you know, like that's a lot of stuff that we do out there. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm glad we got to talk. Like clearly we have a lot in common and I'm appreciate, you know, um feel like you could be a friend. So
Yeah, brother.
um
Yeah. And like, yeah, we're neighbors too. So it gets
we're
to be, yeah, totally. Yeah.
part of the same tribe.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Yeah. Easiest way is my website. It's Conlin, CONLIN coaching.com. And then there's links to, you know, everything I'm up to pretty much there with my retreat work and stuff like that, through Alchemy of Men. So, and then there's links to all my socials there as well too. So,
Excellent.
yeah,
All right. Well, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're interested in coaching, message me and we'll see you on the next one.
awesome. Thanks, Ari.